If you are listening to this while your body feels slow, or your thoughts feel scattered, or you are simply trying to make it through the day without asking too much of yourself, you are exactly where you need to be. You do not need to lean in. You do not need to track every sentence. You can let this exist alongside whatever you are already carrying. There is a point in recovery where the questions change. Early on, everything feels urgent. You want answers. You want timelines. You want reassurance that you are doing the right things. But later, the questions become quieter and harder to articulate. Questions like, why do I still not feel like myself? Or what am I waiting for exactly? If you are in that space, where nothing is actively wrong but nothing feels fully right either, this reflection is for you. Early on, I want to share something clearly and calmly. What you are seeing is an AI-based version of me. That choice is intentional. Every word you hear is written by me, from my own lived experience. The reflections, the pacing, and the language are mine. The AI is simply the way these words are delivered. Nothing more than that. There was a moment in my recovery that I think about often. It did not feel important at the time. I was folding laundry. The house was quiet. My daughters were occupied. One born in 2016, one born in 2021. There was no crisis, no decision to make. And suddenly I realized I had been asking the same question every day, almost without noticing it. When will I feel normal again? I had not been asking it out loud. It lived in the background of everything. When I woke up tired, when my emotions felt flat, when my motivation did not return the way I expected. That question was always there, quietly measuring me against a version of myself I no longer fully remembered. At the time, I believed that feeling normal again was the goal of recovery. I thought that once I crossed that invisible line, everything else would fall into place. Energy would return. Confidence would return. Life would feel familiar again. What I did not understand was that I was holding myself to a standard that no longer existed. The version of me I was trying to return to had never lived through what I had lived through. My body had changed. My nervous system had changed. My awareness had changed. And asking to feel normal again was asking my system to pretend nothing had happened. Over time, I began to notice that the days I felt most frustrated were the days I asked that question the most. Why am I not there yet? Why does this still feel hard? Why am I not moving forward faster? Those questions carried pressure, even when I tried to keep them gentle. What shifted for me was not an answer, but a realization. My body was not trying to go back. It was trying to move forward in a new way. And every time I measured myself against the past, I pulled myself out of the present. This is one of the quieter traps of recovery. The idea that healing means returning to who you were, that once enough time passes, things should feel the same again. But healing is not a rewind. It is a reorganization. I noticed patterns when I stopped chasing normal, when I allowed days to be neutral instead of good or bad, when I let energy come and go without commentary. My body responded differently when it was not being evaluated. There were days I felt clearer, days I felt heavier, days that felt almost ordinary. And instead of interpreting those fluctuations as signs, I began to see them as information. My system was still learning how to exist without threat, without bracing, without constant self-monitoring. For parents, this phase can feel especially disorienting. I remember thinking that I should be grateful things were better for my children, and I was. But gratitude did not cancel out exhaustion. Relief did not erase the emotional cost of what we had lived through together. I carried quiet guilt for wanting to feel better faster, for wanting my own body back when so much had already stabilized. It took time to understand that wanting ease did not make me ungrateful. It made me human. What I know now is that recovery does not ask us to feel normal. It asks us to feel safe. And safety often feels unfamiliar at first. It can feel empty. It can feel boring. It can feel unsettling when you are used to constant vigilance. If you are still waiting to feel like yourself again, I want to offer you something gently. You may not be waiting for a feeling. You may be waiting for permission to let go of who you used to be. Nothing about this means you are stuck. Nothing about this means you missed your window. And nothing about this means healing is not happening. As we come toward the end of this reflection, I want to leave you with this. You do not need to know what normal looks like anymore. You do not need to define your progress. And you do not need to rush toward a version of yourself that belonged to a different chapter. Healing unfolds quietly when pressure is removed, when comparison softens, when the body is allowed to take its time, learning that it is no longer under threat. If you want to read more reflections like this, written slowly and from lived experience, I share them at indoorarinsights.com. It is simply a place where I put language to the parts of recovery that are rarely talked about. For now, you can let go of the question. You do not need an answer today. You are allowed to be exactly where you are without measuring yourself against anything else.